This is every kid's dream.
If you're a fan of Chinese movies, you definitely know big title movies like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Kung Fu Hustle, Fist of Legends, and the like. These movies entertain viewers with well-synchronized fights, a sprinkle of comedy, and a fun storyline that held audiences' attention for extended periods. Despite their niche popularity, Chinese actors rarely break into big Hollywood screens. Those that have been in the spotlight are usually few and far between. Recently, though, one Chinese actor starred in a major role on TV, earning him wins for numerous awards. Starring in the highly successful Marvel movie Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, he was nominated for the People's Choice Award in 2 categories and won the Action Movie Star of 2021 award. Before his role in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Simu Liu was not a popular Chinese face in the media. In fact, by 2012, he had been laid off from his very first job. How did he do so well considering his background? This is the story of Simu Liu. Early years. Simu Liu was born in Harbin, China on April 19, 1989. He is the only child of Zhening and Zhong Liu. During his first 5 years, he was under the watch of his grandparents in Harbin, China. This was because his parents were still heavily invested in the education and work environment when he was born. His parents grew up when getting a university education was a struggle, but they were both lucky to get into the same university where they eventually met. They both studied engineering, and while his mother stayed back in Beijing to work, his father traveled to America for his PhD. Growing up with his grandparents, Liu lived in a small home without many amenities. They didn't even have running water, but those days were idyllic and happy for him. When his father finally came for him, at first Liu was happy to finally meet him. Then when the door opened, he realized that the person who stood before him was a complete stranger. Eventually, his family immigrated to Canada, where they worked dishwashing jobs while on scholarships. With time, they became successful aerospace engineers. Their educational qualifications affected how they saw success and what they expected from their son. Liu's parents experienced China's Cultural Revolution, which influenced how they raised him. They practiced the tiger parenting style, which placed a lot of emphasis on perfection, and were very strict with him. How he was raised, his parents sucked the joy and happiness out of his life. They set a lot of unrealistic expectations of him. At age 5, he was already being taught math that was above his age and was expected to read up on the biographies of scientists. There were times he was belittled and even physically punished. This punishment often bordered on abuse. These parental methods, coupled with the fact that they were immigrants in Canada, made growing up from him a not-so-pleasant experience. These experiences would stay with him well into his adulthood. As a growing child, Simu Liu was unaware of how unpleasant his upbringing was. He even stated that at one point when he was 7 years old, he was recognized as a gifted kid and was excited, which also made his parents happy. These feelings changed when he hit puberty. Partly because of the society he grew up in, and partly because of puberty, he began to disagree with his parents on some things, and his excitement towards academics dropped. This change led to him seeing more clearly the effects of his parents' expectations and the repercussions of falling short. He went to the University of Toronto schools for his high school education. He studied business administration at the Ivey Business School at the University of Western Ontario, where he graduated with honors in 2011. First job. Fresh out of business school, Liu began to look for a job and found one at the accounting giant Deloitte. All seemed well for a while, but he was fired just 9 months into his job. In an interview, he mentioned how being laid off felt very dehumanizing. He notes that it was one of those moments that was seared into his life. He was already in his early 20s when he was laid off, but his fear of his parents prevented him from letting them know he had been sacked. He kept it a secret for a little while longer, still living like he had a job. He felt very guilty, considering all that his parents had done for him and the money they had invested in his education. Looking back, he says being sacked was one of the best things to happen to him. After being sacked, he ventured into acting. His acting career. He began his career acting as an extra and then as a stuntman. He was featured in music videos and movies, such as the movie Pacific Rim and the song I Could Be the One by the late Avicii. He also had screen time in the popular series Nikita in 2012 and the movie adaptation of the fairy tale classic Beauty and the Beast in 2014. That same year, Liu modeled for a set of stock photos for Fat Camera. He was paid $100 for the pictures. While his photos stayed in relative obscurity after the shoot, his performance in the Marvel movie saw his popularity skyrocket, and the images began to resurface. The photos were used for advertisements in subway stations, storefronts, school textbook covers, and other purposes. In 2015, Liu was cast for one of his first major series roles, Blood and Water. His performance in this series earned him his very first award nominations at the ACTRA Awards and the Canadian Screen Awards in 2017. He was a regular in 7 episodes of the series. As an Asian Canadian actor, he observed that the roles available for Asians were very limited and stereotypical. One time, he was auditioning for the role of a Japanese mobster, and the writer did not even want the main character to speak Japanese. The writer wanted him to speak gibberish that just sounded like Japanese. Later, in 2015, he got his first main role in a television series, the CBS television sitcom Kim's Convenience. The series was about the life of a Korean-Canadian family in Canada. Liu played the role of young Kim. The series went on to run for about 5 years and has been Simu Liu's most notable series performance to date. Kim's Convenience has been nominated for many awards and has won many of those awards both in Canada and internationally. A year later, he starred as an ex-CIA analyst in the series Taken. He played the character Farron, loosely based on real-life ex-analyst Rodney Farron. He continued playing the role of extras in series like Orphan Black and the science fiction series Dark Matter, even though he had started getting traction as a lead character in different series. Becoming the first Marvel Chinese superhero. Maybe there is such a thing as the universe listening in on your wish, because at some point 8 years ago, Liu tweeted at Marvel asking for an Asian American hero. Little did he know that in 2021 he would be the first to fill those shoes. In an interview in 2021, he noted that the tweet back then was just the ramblings of a frustrated actor and was not something he considered himself for. Prior to landing his role as Shang-Chi, Liu had been doing all he could to act in a superhero movie as a Chinese superhero. His first attempt at such was when he was 22. He had designed a whole story bible for the character Sunfire, a member of the X-Men. Back then, he believed that was the best way he could land a role in Marvel. He tried again in 2015. This time, he wrote, directed, and acted in a short film titled Crimson Defender versus the Slightly Racist Family. The short film was about a superhero who rescues a family, but they do not believe he's a superhero because he's Asian. He even tried to get a role in the Mortal Kombat franchise before being accepted as Shang-Chi. In 2018 again, when it was announced that Shang-Chi was in development, Simu Liu put out another tweet. This time, he directly tagged Marvel, asking if they were going to talk or what. The next year, he got a call from his manager telling him he was on a short list of people that were supposed to try out for the role of Shang-Chi. He later got the official request for an audition tape. The movie selected for him to try out was Good Will Hunting, one of Liu's favorite movies. He really did not have much of an expectation, but within a few weeks, he was on his way to LA to meet director Destin Daniel Cretton. His meeting with the director lasted almost an hour, and he was so uncomfortable afterward that he felt like throwing up. The meeting might have been terrifying for Liu, but it was also a strong sign that he could get the role. During the press conference, Simu Liu discussed the moment when he found out that he had been cast in the role. He stated that he was in his room when he received the call at approximately 6:30 p.m. and that he had an idea what the call would be about, somewhere in the recesses of his mind. That same evening, Kevin Feige gave him a call and informed him that he'd been cast in the role. In addition, Feige stated that he would be preparing for Comic-Con in 4 days and would be introduced at that time. At that very moment, he was well aware that the course of his life was going to be altered. The rest, as they say, is history. While many claim that his earlier tweets had played a role in his acceptance, Feige mentioned that that was not the case, and that he was not even aware of the tweets until after Liu had been chosen for the role. Feige noted that during the audition, Liu was able to prove exactly why he was the right person for the job. On announcing to his parents, their response was not as enthusiastic as he had wanted or hoped. The movie Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings was a massive success at the box office. It seems a second part of the movie is currently in the works. After the movie, Simu Liu released a memoir titled We Were Dreamers, an immigrant superhero origin story. In his memoir, he relates his journey to getting the role of a superhero while treating issues surrounding parental abuse and his reconciliation with his parents. Now they are on friendly terms. Simu Liu's journey to stardom is quite fascinating and encourages many Asians to strive for greatness. For more inspiring stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe.